Minnesota. Oops, this meeting is being live streamed. Oh, okay. Hi, Minnesota. This is Christy Thompson with Christy Legal, and I am a divorce and custody mediator and paralegal in Minnesota. And I know that when my clients are divorcing, they have a lot of questions. And one of the questions that they might have is, how do their kids feel about the divorce? And how do they feel about the things that happen after the divorce? And when I heard Cindy Karnes talk about what it felt like after her parents divorced, I thought, this is something my clients might like to know. I present to you Cindy Karnes, and not only is she the child of divorced parents, but she also helps multi-passionate professionals regain control of their time so that they can make a big impact. She has a social media boot camp and Empowered Hours Club. And that's how she guides clients to leave their baggage behind, take action, and pursue their ambitious vision. So please take it away, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I'm super happy to be here today, and thank you for inviting me and allowing me to speak in front of your network. Yes, as Christy said, I am a child of divorced parents. So I'm just going to start with my story and kind of go from there. So my parents divorced before I was 1. I didn't know my parents together at all as a couple. So I had no fantasies of my parents ever getting back together. But I had 3 siblings. My parents remarried and had other children. And so I had 3 siblings by the time I was 4. And eventually there ended up with, there's 6 of us. But I was an only child from my parents' union. And I was the oldest of all my siblings. So I was really the only person in my family that was spending 50% of the time with my mom and 50% of the time with my dad. And the rest of my siblings were with their parents and their and traveling in a family unit. Now, I had a fantastic childhood. I had loving parents. I had loving grandparents. My paternal grandparents spoke very highly of my mother until their dying day. But with transitioning between my mother and my father, there was something inside me that really I struggled to figure out where did I belong. Now, my parents never spoke poorly of one another. They supported each other as far as I could see, as far as I could tell. And so, but it was this guilt. And at this time, growing up, of course, I didn't identify it. I didn't really identify this until about 2 years ago when I started to verbalize it. I actually identified myself as an only child with 6 siblings, and bouncing back and forth between my parents. I always felt guilty. Well, am I spending enough time with my father's side? Am I spending enough time with my mother's side? I had great experiences on both sides. And then I didn't want to take them back to my other siblings. For example, I spent every Sunday with my paternal grandparents from the time I was birth until 18. And we had fun together. They took me go-kart riding. They took me to zoos. They took me to this circus and all these different fun activities. And then going back to my mother's side and sharing them with my siblings on my mom's side, that felt like a little guilt there that they were not having the same experiences. Although they were having fun experiences as well. I have 33 nieces and great nieces and nephews, 33 cousins on my mom's side. So, excuse me, they were having fun, lots of fun and on their own. But then it came to holidays. It came to Christmas. I was getting Christmas gifts from both sides of my parents. Christmas Eve, I would spend with my dad. So I would be getting ready at my house, putting on my Christmas outfit. My other 2 siblings with my mom was not having that same experience, then I'd go to my dad's, I'd have a fantastic Christmas and come home with Christmas gifts. The same with Easter and birthdays. And then as I continued to grow up and have conversations with my grandparents on my father's side, my stepfather has been in my life since I was at least 2, 3. And so I refer to him as dad. And so there was always that conflict inside of me when I was talking to each side of the family and referring to different children, different experiences, and whatnot. So there was just a lot, there was guilt there, and not from anybody that said, none of my parents never said anything. The adults in my life, they never brought it up. My siblings never actually brought it up, mentioned it to me. They didn't know life any different, but I felt the guilt.
And how did the guilt that you felt, how did that carry over into your adulthood? What kind of thoughts and feelings did it make you have?
Yeah, so growing up, so I relocated from my home state after college and started my career here in Minnesota. But I still, through young adulthood, until, like I said, really recently, the last couple of years, when I actually started to identify what that label of being an only child of 6 siblings really implied about being alone. And then I looked back at some of the decisions that I made. Even I had lots of friends around me, I had colleagues around me. When moving here into Minnesota, I'm so fortunate. I have lots of friends and people that I actually refer to as family. But yet I still didn't feel like I fit in or where I belonged. And back to my stepfather, he never referred to me as his stepdaughter. He always refers to me as his oldest. And then but there have been different situations on my stepmother's side, or with my dad's second wife. She would kind of refer to me as, well, this is Larry's, my dad's, and then these other children are mine. And so, and again, not saying that that's where it came from. There were different experiences. For whatever reason, I internalized it as being alone and not fitting in. That carried on through my adulthood. And so when it came to work and it came to my career, I just always felt like I had to prove that I belonged, that I had to work extra hard to prove that I deserve to be here. I deserve to be in that career. And actually, once I started to identify this label a few years ago and actually think back of how it impacted the decisions that I made as I grew up. And I then started, now when I go back, when I spend, go back home to visit with my family, the different, my father's side or what have you, I definitely show up differently. And they didn't change. Everything's the same, but the way I show up now, because I'm not an only child of 6 siblings. I'm actually an oldest of 7, and I have, my family, but it was just something that as a young child, my experience is something that I internalized, and that label just kind of made me feel like I didn't fit in.
Yeah, and that's a great point, is that you didn't, they didn't change at all. You changed. And so I'm guessing that this change that you had in yourself, that is also, that's probably what led you to want to help other people change with your business. Is that correct?
Yes, so it's actually community. So I realized that community is really a core value of mine. And it's something that I'm super passionate about. And it does come back from my childhood, of that feeling of not belonging anywhere or fitting in. I said, that was my goal in life, was to create a community where people felt like they belonged, they had a voice, and they were heard. And they were validated that they weren't alone. So that is definitely where my passion comes from, Empowered Hours, and helping people through that.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Empowered Hours then? Because, that's what, you learned. You must have had an epiphany someday, and you learned that that's what was, going on in your life, that was holding you back. So tell us a little bit about Empowered Hours and how you help people not be held back.
Yeah. So, and when this actually, my pivot moment, or the fork in the road, I went from an ex-corporate gal to entrepreneurship, finally in August of 2020. But it was a few years prior to that when I was thinking about entrepreneurship. And I was focused in on some products that definitely improved my life. But I would say to myself, there's something bigger for me, and it has to do with community, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. And it took me a few years to figure that out. And then when the pandemic hit, I had the opportunity to step away from corporate. And I said, if not now, when? And I launched this business. I wasn't quite sure exactly what that community looked like. It started off with kind of a support group for professional women just like me, who were overwhelmed and stressed and saying no to myself and yes to everybody else, constantly proving that they needed to be there, or that they had to prove themselves over and over and over again. But through a little bit of transition, where it's landed today is that I work with, like you said in the intro, it's multi-passionate entrepreneurs. And it's because we want to make a big impact in the world. We have so many ideas. We want to launch so many different things, but yet we're really resisting structure. And so we're really not making progress on what it is that we want to create in the world. So it is a community of like-minded individuals in the entrepreneurship, and we come together weekly and we talk about what are our goals, what are our challenges. First off, our successes, because I think us as women, it's like, what do we do a many different great things, but we rarely call them out. We can tell you the things that we didn't get done very fast. And so we talk about what went well this week, what are our challenges, what are our goals for the following week, and we support each other and inspire each other and validate that you're not alone, especially with your challenges.
That's awesome. And so now do you have any success stories that you can tell without names from your business?
Yes, I do have a few different success stories, and that I spoke a lot about the Empowered Hours. And as a sub product of Empowered Hours, I have the social media boot camp, and that helps businesses that are told that they need to be on social media. They really hate it. They think it's a time suck. They don't know what to do with it. And I have a 6-week program that I help show them that they are more than business. And I show them how they can stand out on in a land of many. And that really talks about who they are, what they do, why they do it. And they educate, and they entertain, and they engage. And they think of social media as actually a networking platform. I have several clients that have gone through that, and I follow them, of course, on social media, and I'm watching them change how they do how they're posting their content. I'm currently working with a spa right now, and they had a beautiful page, social media platform, but it looked like every other spa out there. And it was come in and get a massage, and that was it. And when I took a look at really the location that they're at, and they have, getaways, they really promote getaways. They're connected to a hotel, so they have lots of other amenities that they can offer. And I immediately am like, tell me more about your community. If I'm going to go there for a getaway, where can I go to get, where's some fine dining options, some shopping options for my girlfriends and I, if we go, music, entertainment, how do you support your community and whatnot? And I'm watching them really explode in their content. And I have a handful of clients that have gone through that. And that's been fun to watch. And then with my Empowered Hours Club, I have a client right now. She's looking at launching a flagship program. And so it's just sitting down each week and talking about what are your steps, what are required to get you there. And looking at we have 168 hours in the week. We're spending our 168 hours today. And a lot of us women, of course, will say yes to the world and no to ourselves. I had to do a little check with myself this week. That also comes back to not feeling like I belong, and also proving myself as I was growing up. It's like, yes, 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 I'm here. I can do it. I can help. I can be that people pleaser. Also not being, because not feeling like I fit in. And so I had to do a little check with myself this week as well and say, wait, am I spending my time and energy on the things that serve me and that matter to me? So I do the same thing with my clients, and I'm watching her. She's just getting started, but really just taking that goal, breaking it down into a project plan. And then we can do it bite-sized, step by step. And as she starts to launch, and it's starting to come together for her. And it's just kind of fantastic and fun to watch.
Great. Thanks so much for speaking to us today. There aren't any questions in the chat box, and nobody sent me any questions ahead of time. So now if you want to get a hold of Cindy, her contact information is, it's not in there yet. It's going to be there very shortly. And she will, do a free consultation for you. And do you have any last words to tell folks, Cindy?
Yeah, I do. I think as parents, as you're going through the decision of going through a divorce, that's super, super heart-wrenching for sure. And making that decision. And when you're speaking with your children, that's one thing that I don't know. I mean, that I really didn't have the words to articulate what I was feeling. And I know a lot of parents will, talk to their children about the divorce really is not they didn't cause it, right? Which is fantastic. But then also just kind of giving space or those conversations with the children to help them find the words to articulate what maybe is going on deeper that they may not even know how to articulate.
Yeah. And would you say that that if you had had a counselor when you were growing up, that would have been helpful?
Perhaps, yes, somebody, and my parents, they were fantastic. They are fantastic parents, and they didn't know what they didn't know. And so, yes, perhaps if there was somebody, a professional in my life that could have asked these questions that would have got me thinking about exactly what was going on that I really didn't know how to articulate. So it's helping that child find a way to communicate of what may be going on. I have friends that have children that are going through divorce, and I know one in particular. I know the child is super, super sweet, and I can see he definitely is a people pleaser, and he does want to be with everybody. He wants to be with his mom, he wants to be his dad, he wants to be his grandparents, and yes, and I can see why, definitely. But then helping him through it, he may be having a little bit of guilt on am I spending enough time with each other parent, or if one parent got remarried, there's other children involved. So yes, perhaps a counselor would help identify that and help you find the words to articulate it.
And as part of the work that I do as Christie Legal, I always offer my clients a referral to a counselor for themselves and their kids, because life transitions, in my opinion, you need counseling. I have not been divorced, but I have been widowed, and counseling was instrumental to my kids and I moving forward. So I always offer counseling. And everybody have a great rest of your evening, and definitely contact Cindy if you have any questions for her about what she presented about, be it being the only child of 7 siblings, I believe is how you say it, or if you need help with divorce or custody. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Christy.